To show you how to use Photopea, which is an image editing software that's free to use online. Once you know how to use some of these tools in Photopea, the possibilities of what you could do are pretty much endless, and it's also just a very useful tool to be able to use. Obviously, a lot of people are familiar with using filters on apps such as Instagram, but actually, like each filter, you can kind of just do one thing or two things. So but if you actually know how to use Photopea or Photoshop, pretty much you can do anything you want, okay? And you're not relying on someone else to come up with a filter. Um, so to start a new project, you go to File, New. So File, New, and then what's great about Photopea is that they've set up loads of templates for us to use. So you don't have they will set up like an A4 page or an A3 page, and they're all in the correct dimensions. If you look along the menu here, we have social templates. So they have set up templates with the correct dimensions for things like Instagram. And then this one is an Instagram story. So I guess because it's rectangular, Instagram story would be something you could also use on TikTok or another platform that you want to use. They have the dimensions of a YouTube cover. So all of these things are really, really useful if you ever want to make something that's for a social media platform. But for today, we're going to go back and do we're going to do A4. So it's something that potentially we could print out. And what they have is they have the correct dimensions here for an A4 page, so that's all very handy. This box here, DPI, that means dots per inch. That's to do with the resolution of the image. We're not going to worry too much today about resolution, but it's all to do with how much your image is in focus when you make it bigger or smaller. But we're not going to get too worked up about that today. You can change the background, so if you want to do white or transparent or change it to a background color, you can do that. We're just going to keep it white, I think, and we'll press create. So here is our project. There are so many buttons here on the screen. Don't get overwhelmed by them. You can get to know what each one does over time, and I'm going to show you how to use a load of them as well. One section of your screen that's really important is your layers. So along here in this box here is every time we bring in a new image, it's going to become a new layer. So if you can imagine, the way that this works is, if you can imagine that your images are all on acetate sheets, and we put each acetate on top of each other, and then the images all merge together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop in an image that I have saved. So I've downloaded this from a website, but it would be great if you could use your own images. So what I'm going to do is make this just a bit bigger so that it fits into my page. I'm going to move it up here. You see these boxes at the top. As I'm moving this, I'm actually, it's important to hit the shift key on your computer, because this will mean that your image stays in the correct dimensions. So if I hadn't done that, say I could lose the correct dimensions of my image and it might start to get a bit skewed. So what I'm going to do instead is, every time I make an image bigger or smaller, I'm going to hold down the shift key, and we'll keep the correct dimensions. So I'm just going to try. Sorry, I let go of the thing there. Okay. So that's filling my page now. So let's just say I'm happy with that. And you can't just move on from this point. You actually always have to press this tick button here, which is a bit annoying, because I found that, like, you sometimes don't realize they haven't pressed a tick and you're trying to move on and do something else, and then the computer won't let you do anything. So just a reminder that you always have to press that tick if you bring in an image or if you change the size of it. So I'm going to bring in another image on top of this one, and it's going to be a new layer that's on top of that plant picture. instead of dragging and dropping, I'll show you another way of bringing in an image. So File, Open and Place. So let's just say I have a picture here of a girl. I'm going to make a double exposure with this girl's face. Just wait a second for it to load. Like if we're using high resolution images, so these are quite big images, it can take your computer a while to do these jobs. Sometimes you might have to wait for something to load if you're doing a really big job. So you don't realize that your computer is actually having to work quite a lot in the background. Just trying to make her fit this screen as well. Okay, so and then let's say I'm happy with this and I press tick. So you see that's taken a while. So that image of that girl is quite a big file size, and that's why it's taking a while for that to do that job. So I can change the order of my layers down here. So I can drag this one down underneath, and then she's underneath the plant. So obviously you know, we can't see her, so you wouldn't put her underneath that one. But it you know, as you bring more and more layers into your image, it starts to become more complex. One thing that's I'll just show you as well the eraser tool. Let's just say I want to erase some of her background so that I can start to see the plant in the background. I've clicked on the eraser tool, but every time you try and use it for the first time, you're going to get this pop-up message. So you see there the way it asked me, did I want to rasterize my image? And I'm just going to click yes, and I'm not going to worry about rasterizing or what that means. It basically just means changing the file format, but we're not going to get our heads in a tiz about that. Just click yes and move on. So now that I've rasterized the image, what I'm able to do is start to rub out the background. You can see I can change the opacity of the brush of the rubber. If I bring this up to 100%, whenever I rub some area, like it's just going to disappear completely. Or if I want to have like 50%, it's going to be like that. So some of her background disappears, but it's still a bit faded, so you can still see some of it. So you can play around with that. You can also change the size of your brush. So I can bring this up so it's much bigger and it'll be much quicker to do. So you can do that. So another thing you can do is kind of change the lighting and everything of the image. So if you go to Image, Adjustments, you get this big menu of like loads of different things that you can do with your image. So let's say we want to change the brightness. We can play with that there. The contrast. So it's making the light and dark areas really severe against each other. Let's just say I like that. I press OK and I go back and I'm going to do something else now to her as well. Vibrance. Make the colors very vibrant. Like I tend to like to change the saturation a lot. I like to make things really colorful, but if you bring the saturation up too much, it can start to look like your image has been overly edited. Or if you wanted to have this kind of old-fashioned kind of really pale look, you could do this. And then also you can play around with filters. So again, just to draw your attention back to the layers, I'm touching her layer there, but so whenever I'm going into these menus, it's always changing the image of her. But say if I had this one selected and I went into the image adjustments, I could change the plant picture. So I'm going to put another thing just to let you know about is this auto select. That's quite an important box there. If you tick that, what that means is when you're using the cursor tool here, every time you click on an image, it's going to let you move that. But if you didn't have that ticked, the computer is going to rely on which layer you're touching over here in the layer screen. So say for example, if you didn't have this button ticked, and let's see, I'm in the layer with the girl on it. If I was trying to touch the background, no matter what I did here, even though I keep clicking on the plant, I can't touch the plant, which is, if you didn't know about that auto select and how the layers work, that would be very frustrating. So just keep your auto select on. So I'm going to put a filter on this girl's image. So filter. And what I would say is go into your filter gallery, because that will show you all the different filters that you could use. So you can play around with all the different types of filters that they have here. Sometimes the filters can be quite slow. They're quite big jobs for the computer to have to do. So just bear that in mind. If it is taking a little while, that's probably why. So you can change your image. That's quite cool, but I don't know why it's jumping around the screen like that. So let me just see. So I'll just come out of that, but you can click through each different filter there and see which ones you like the look of. But another thing that I can also do is, I use this a lot, is I get the layers to interact with each other. So the colors in her image, I want them to interact with her background. So what I'm going to do is I've clicked on her layer, and I'm going to go down through this drop down menu here, and the two images, it's kind of like a scientific experiment. The two images are going to start interacting with each other. So each photo is going to be different. So like sometimes you have two images and one filter looks brilliant with the two of them, and then other times it might make very little difference. So I like to use these to make a double exposure. And what I like is when the two images are kind of merging with each other. So like something like this. So if you could get two images and put one on top of the other and try and create a double exposure using this drop down menu here. The other thing, just to let you know, is that you could, if you wanted to, you could add text to your image. So I'm going to zoom in. So I've clicked the type tool here, and what I'm going to do is create a box here, and I'm going to start saying, okay, so I've written jungle there. You might have to play around with the size of your text. The type tool can be a bit tricky to use, so if you feel like it's causing you lots of hassle, don't worry, don't try it now. You can go into the color of your text. So like, let's say I want to change it to green. I can go there and say, okay, I'm happy with that. And you can obviously change the font as well. Because if you look back at your layers, the text with the green text is underneath the girl's image, and obviously she has that effect on her layer, so that's why the text is kind of changing color there. But I don't mind that. I think that's okay. But look, if I moved the text on top of hers, it would just be like completely normal. It would just be like its original form. But if I bring it down underneath her, the effect that I have on her layer is starting to interact with that green text. So I think that is everything, and I'll just show you how to save things. So if you go File, if you want to, like, say you want to save this and come back to Photoshop and start moving all your layers around again, you have to save it as a Photoshop document. So yeah, that's PSD. And so when you, like, say you opened it again tomorrow, you'd be able to start again and move around all your layers and, you know, just carry on from there. But if you're happy with it and you just say to yourself, okay, it's finished, I want to print it out and I want it to just be a normal image that you can share easily with people, then you would go to File, Export As, and just click JPEG. And then you can play around with the quality and just press save. So obviously the higher quality images are going to be big files, and smaller quality, you can probably just use a high quality save if you're okay for storage space on your laptop. But if you don't want to start using up space, maybe bring down the quality. File, and then save as a Photoshop document. So if you want to save this and come back to it another time, that will just download there and you can use that another time. So I hope that's been useful for you. It might be a lot all in one go, so if you want to come back and try out different things, you can. So, you know, you might need to watch some things once or twice, but even if you just get you don't even have to use the text. If you just get the double exposure done, that would be really cool. So just bring in 2 images into your project, and then with the top one you can just play around with the different effects here. And the very last thing I'm going to show you is if you want to bring in a new layer, there is a button down at the bottom of your layers panel here, just called layers. I brought in a new layer there. I'm going to use my paint bucket. Sometimes your tools are hidden. Okay, so like inside this menu here, where you see that symbol there, there's a paint bucket tool here, and the color that my paint bucket is using is this red. But to be honest, that red is going to look very severe. So if you go through along here, you'll be able to find a more neutral color. So let's just say I'm going to use a kind of a peachy red like that. My new layer, which is on the very top, I'm able to use my paint bucket tool, and it literally just creates a full page full of that color. But I'm going to bring this down and drag it down underneath the girl, because she has the filter on, she has that effect on her. So you can see that creates a huge reaction and it totally changes the look of the photo. Let's just say I didn't use pink, let's just say I used some kind of blue. Would that make it look different? Again, I'm using my paint bucket, and yeah, it gets a totally different effect. So you can play around with, if you've tried the 2 different images merging together, you could start to bring in colors and see how the different effects that colors can bring to your image as well. Okay, thank you so much for listening.